Well, this is my Traxxas VXL conversion. Just want to show the cars side by side. Underneath the skin here we have my Traxxas Fortec 2.0 VXL. Now I've got a Castle Creations motor for speed runs on that, so I'm going to set a VXL setup out of this car and put it into this one. Now you'd think, oh, looks absolutely massively different. Weight wise, there's not an awful lot in it between the two. The one thing I've invested in though, given the fact that we put the VXL power through the Slash, this is two-wheel drive Slash by the way, is the Traxxas TSM Receiver, in order that I can get the TSM setup working on this car. Now, whilst you're about to see how to convert your Traxxas Slash to a VXL spec, the best and most cost-effective way to do this is via the Traxxas upgrade program, where you send off your existing motor and ESC and pay them some money, and they send you back a shiny new VXL setup. Or better still, go into your local hobby store and do the power upgrade program through them. It is by far and away the most cost-effective solution, far cheaper than buying these bits new on their own. Now the other thing I should have said, to get the Slash to run at the magic 60 mph plus mark, it's going to need to run on a 3S LiPo with the VXL setup, much the same as the Fortec does. You're also going to need to fit on these optional gearing parts, as the Traxxas Slash VXL straight out of the box doesn't do the 60 mph without the optional gearing on. Now I've had to get a 31 tooth from Robinson, as my local shop was out of the Traxxas ones. This is 76 tooth spurs. We're going to need to change both those over. VXL parts on board this, and that's the conversion, all being well. Well, in my case, I'm removing the Traxxas VXL setup from my Fortec on there, so all I've got to do, take the motor out, take the motor off, gear off, unplug these three wires, remove the ESC, just got one wire to unthread from the receiver in here. And then we have it, our VXL setup ready to go in the Traxxas Slash. Why did I show you that, you might ask? It's just to show just how versatile Traxxas are, love them or hate them. There are very few cars which you can just switch everything over as fast as that. This is probably 5 or 6 minutes work in order to completely remove the VXL setup. The only thing, as I said, this is a TSM receiver, hence the new TSM receiver for the Traxxas Slash. Well, I've unpacked everything, so I've got not only my VXL motor and ESC set up there, I've got my new receiver and my gearing all ready to go. So now, time to take the existing motor and ESC out the Traxxas Slash and swap the gearing over. Well, I chose to film this Traxxas Slash two-wheel drive VXL conversion, as I feel it's one of the best bang for your buck conversions that you can do. Very, very simple to do. If you've not got lots of technical skills, this is one for you. The ESC just held in by 2 screws, as it's the existing VXL one. Just 2 screws to undo the gear cover here. Then you're going to remove the pinion. Then you're going to remove the pinion and the spur, and there's just 2 screws underneath this cover that are holding the motor in. So you just got to disconnect the wires here, and that should be a fairly straightforward job. Well, first things first, just to give myself a bit more access to this gear casing, just going to take this wheel off and then remove those 2 screws. Also, one thing to be aware of on the Slash, there are just 2 screws, and you're almost looking for one around this end and not. There's one here and one where I've got the hex driver going in and out of the minute, because the thing kind of clips on and slides in there. Very, very easy to remove. Just keep the thing nice and safe. I always prefer to keep the screws in there. Okay, well, first of all, I'm simply going to remove the existing pinion gear. Very, very easy to do. Do remember to put thread lock on when fitting the new pinion onto the VXL, particularly with the VXL motor, excessive amount of power. The next thing I'm going to undo is the motor, which is held on just by these 2, very firmly, it says, by these 2 screws. Okay, just swinging that round. Motor's come completely loose there. Simply going to disconnect it from existing ESC. Okay. Good hard pull is all that's needed, and these will simply push back together if you need to keep it for future use. Next, just going to undo the 2 screws on the ESC, and then we're all ready to fit the new setup in, other than changing the spur over. Okay, undone those 2 screws, so the ESC is now ready to lift up. However, we do need to pay attention. Undo the receiver, the 4 screws on the receiver box here, and remove the ESC connection from the receiver. Okay, I've positioned my new Traxxas TSM receiver in place. You will need a little bit of sticky back plastic to put that in place, and just ensure you put the wires in the correct slots. Read the manual for exactly which ones, because they do differ slightly from the one on your standard radio receiver. Now, you will need a Traxxas transmitter with the TSM function on it in order to get this the best out of this setup, in order to get it to work at all. In fact, they do an upgrade program for the transmitter and receiver, as well as the power up options. Once again, that's by far and away the most cost effective way to do this upgrade, rather than buying the things completely from new, is to simply upgrade the existing ones through their upgrade program. Now, when it comes to pairing this receiver with the transmitter, Traxxas have got a great video on how to do this. I'm not going to go into any depth in there to explain it far better and far quicker than I could, so I'll put a link to that below this video. Use the two existing screws to fit down the new VXL 3S that you took off the XL5 ESC. Okay, now you may want to tidy up these two additional accessory wires fitted to the VXL 3S. Other than that, we've got our motor wires here ready to go. Battery connector, easy access to existing battery. So next thing to do is fit the new motor and remove the existing spur, and fit the new spur gear and the new pinion on. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is, before fitting the motor in, is remove the existing spur gear, undoing this central nut. Okay, now to remove this nut can be a bit of a pig, as you will need to lock off both of the drive shafts in order that when you're turning this nut to undo it, everything else isn't undoing at the same time. Now I'd very carefully take the spring and the nut off and set them carefully aside. Okay, I'm moving my wheel screw out of the way there. You've got a bearing in the centre of the spur, which is going to need to come out, because you're going to need to fit that to the new spur. Likewise, there is this clutch plate setup, so you'll need to remove these three screws, take this clutch plate setup and fit it into the new spur gear, which is the optional one for the higher speed gearing. And the same with, as I said, that centre bearing is going to fit in here, so we're just going to do that. Okay, just going to take a moment to very quickly undo these three screws. I would say good sub hex wrenches makes this job very easy. Also, what I recommend to remove this from the existing spur is simply use your little wheel wrench in there to gently push through to remove the plate, and that setup simply pushes home into the three screw holes there on the existing plate. You see the bearing, it's going to sit in the middle, so put 3 screws in, put the bearing back in. Okay, now the gear assembly simply slides back on. Now, as I mentioned, in the minute you start to turn this, both drive shafts are when they're going to turn around. So what I recommend is loosely fixing this wheel back on, because you want to take that back off, ideally for fitting the cover on. But you're going to be able to stop the car from moving forward. It's only 2-wheel drive, bear in mind. So you're going to be able to stop the car from moving forwards with one hand whilst you tighten this nut up. How tight you want to go with this type of clutch is going to be down to your own personal preference of driving style, but I do like mine fairly tight on there. Now you're going to take this wheel back off, put it back on the stand, and get ready to install the motor. Okay, the next stage, paying a careful attention to where the wiring is going and where the holes are orientated into the screws in here. Now I've kept the screws in there, but I would recommend putting them somewhere safe, as I've already dropped one on the floor. So we're going to put the motor through, then we're going to fit our new pinion on, and we're going to put a bit of Loctite on there and leave that overnight to harden properly, because believe me, with the VXL power you can lose a pinion in no time. Okay, now with the 2 motor mounting screws, a little bit of trial and effort, but not too hard to get them to locate in there. What I recommend doing is just tighten the thing, just finger tight, spinning that round. Hopefully people can see that. We're going to ensure we've got the flat spot there up against where our little grub screw is going on there. Well, what I focused on there is not how well they mesh together from the side. I'm going to focus on that in a minute, but more, are they in line with each other on there before tightening that grub screw up. Okay, well, that gear mesh, it just simply requires getting it in place and then tightening the 2 motor screws nice and firmly, whereas I just had them finger tight before, so I can move the motor around. You just want just enough so the gear's getting the good contact on there. It doesn't need to be too tight, in which case it'll be too noisy. Doesn't be too loose, otherwise you might risk this metal gear stripping plastic teeth off of the spur, which is not good. Now I've put Loctite on there. I'm going to go and call it a night now, leave that thing to set overnight so it's set nice and hard, and come back, finish the job in the morning. Well, the last thing is just put the gear cover on the slash. You need a bit of a wiggle and a jiggle. It's kind of locked behind something. on here, and then you've just got the 2 screws to very simply. Okay, got the cover securely back on there. Just very quickly, I'm going to pop the wheel back on. Now the last bit of the job slightly tricky. You have these 3 leads for the brushless VXL setup through this little hole in here. Don't put them anywhere near shock absorbers, anything like that could potentially chew through one of the leads, so they've got to fit through there. Okay, if everything's gone to plan, the lead should come through and fit here fairly easily. So just fit the corresponding colours back together again on there, blue to blue, yellow to yellow. Make sure they're nice and pressed tightly together. And there we are. Other than a little bit of tidying up for these wires, which I need to find a home for, we're pretty much ready to go. There you are, the Traxxas VXL conversion. Very, very simple to do. You don't need an awful lot of tools or an awful lot of technical skill to be able to do this. Bear in mind, you can stick with the existing receiver, or because if you change to a TSM based receiver, you're obviously going to need a TSM transmitter. If you've already got a Traxxas card with a TSM transmitter, you can pair it to work with your new TSM receiver on it. You needn't go out and buy a separate TSM transmitter if you've already got one. So a little bit of money to be saved there if you've already got one. But you can build this VXL setup with the stock receiver. Obviously, you're going to need to be a bit more aware of the power and controlling it manually, rather than letting the TSM help you out. All the parts that I've used in this video are listed below the video, so you can convert any Traxxas slash 2-wheel drive to a VXL spec one, including the gearing. Now, the optional gearing fitted on here isn't the gearing that the Traxxas slash VXL comes with as standard. Even with that, to get the maximum out of the Traxxas slash VXL, you need to buy and fit the optional gearing. It's only going to do about 45-50 miles an hour at a peak on 3S without this gearing fitted. You're not going to go over that 60 miles an hour without this. Anyway, I hope you found this video useful. I try to do it as step by step as possible without going and labouring on things too long. Anyway, if you found it useful, please subscribe and by all means share with friends.
Well, if you like this video, then please do subscribe. And if you want to buy your RC gear, where I buy mine, buy from F&M Hobbies in New Jersey. Many thanks for watching.